Computer. Welcome, Chris Evans Radio. We are back with little Dave. It's just him and I today. We have been ranting and raving for about 15, 20 minutes. And I thought we would start today's podcast with just a quick recap of where his show prep is, and what we did with his nutrition plan. So, Dave, do you want to talk a little bit to start with, like how many weeks out you are and what we did today nutritionally?
Yeah, so we're just over 5 weeks out.
Yep.
So Saturday, the end of this week, will be 5 weeks out. So 39 days out, want that number. So we just took down food a notch. So, it's kind of in that zone where you're like, okay, food's definitely lower. Training's still going really well, actually. Without training's been going, I've been loving life because, like, honestly, training's been going north. Pretty much on everything. So that's kind of the fun part of prep now, where you get really efficient. Just added back in super supplements. So that was noticeable. For sure. And we just added HIIT cardio on my upper body training days.
Yep.
So I've yet to do a single session of that. But as that
in the plan
this morning, and today's a rest day.
Right.
So that's going to be fun. Just 8 rounds of HIIT that's actually that goes by so fast.
Yeah.
That's 8 minutes of work, by the way. And well, actually less than that, because it is only 15-second rounds. So
yeah, so what, it took technically
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. 2 minutes of work.
Yeah.
And that's it's straight sprinting. So
yeah. On a bike, miserable.
Yeah.
So what's really interesting is, I'll backtrack just a touch. We had driven your weight down and it was aggressively going low, so I had to feed you up for leg day.
Super true.
And I think that was just over 600 grams of carbs, maybe.
Yeah. It's like 6 something.
Yeah, I don't have your sheet pulled up here, but then, I mean, God, your pump on that day was wild.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel. Like, anytime I take total body photos on a leg day, I'm always like, fuck, I'm so unbalanced top to bottom.
Yeah.
And it's really weird, because it's like, God, I need to go train upper body for the next 7 weeks, just upper body. And then it's like, okay, cool. Because that's why I had you send me your photos post-lift, back-to-back days. So legs, and then you had chest and shoulders. And it's so funny to watch that balance back out, like when you have blood in your upper body.
Yeah.
And I don't know if, well, I know for a fact not everyone is like that. But for guys like you and I who have well-developed lower bodies, when you push all that blood in there, it almost leaves your upper body and leaves you a little flat up top, because the session's so hard. And it creates this really disproportionate look. Now, I know from seeing your physique long enough that that's not really the case. But if someone just blind saw it, they'd be like, oh man, like his upper body's way behind his lower. So for all you coaches out there, like, you need to get a good gambit of, like, if you're getting and asking for post-lift photos, you always have to be really mindful, in my mind, of like looking at what body part was trained, because it can blur some lines in terms of, like, if you send me post-lift arm photos, I might be like, oh, you don't never need any arms ever by themselves. But then you say, send me your arm photos fasted, or after a leg day, or after something like a back or chest shoulder, where we have no arm direct work, and it's like, oh no, we still need to stay on top of those arms. So it's one of those things, like, in my thought process of being able to see you as many states as possible, fasted, post-lift, lower body, upper body, all that kind of stuff. And then with my thoughts with this change that came today, as I told you, it was, all right, so I've kept your food higher as long as I can. And I mean, you were, if my memory's right, it was like 322 grams of carbs on a training day.
Yeah.
And, your cardio is 30 minutes, 5 times a week fasted. So what we're going to do now is, you're still above 200 grams of carbs on a training day. But then I added the 8 rounds of HIIT on upper body days in the PM. So you'll do that between meals 5 or 6, or after 6, somewhere in there. To me, it doesn't really matter. It's where it fits your schedule best. And my goal was just to get that third stimulus, right? So you'll have fasted cardio, you'll have training, and then some HIIT to just put you in a state of just optimal fat burning for night. And I know all the science may not show that, but I'm telling you, it works.
Yeah.
And you've done it with me successfully many times at this point. So it's something you're familiar with, something you don't mind doing. You have a bike at your house.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
convenient.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's super easy too. I mean, like with warming up and cooling down, it's a 20-minute process tops, you
yeah,
know, and
yep,
then pop in the shower, go to bed, or,
yeah.
and then, well, eat my last meal, go to bed.
And I think something else to be spoken for there is, they're like, oh, why do you do it upper body days only? Like it's such a quad pump. Like you
Yeah.
finish it and your lower body is just full of blood. And to me, that will always do two things. It's just circulation blood for recovery. It's keeping your legs full. And then also it's going to make your metabolism run like a wildfire. So it makes eating and meals just go down super quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as my diet philosophies always are, the faster your food turnover ratio is, the cleaner your digestion is, the more optimally you're burning fat. And I
Yeah.
don't know, may not everyone see nutrition and dieting that way, but for me, like that's the reason we tend to stick to foods that digest well for you, because I want that fast turnover rate. I don't want anything to sit heavy in your stomach, because to me, if
Yeah.
it's heavy in your stomach and still digesting, we aren't burning fat because your blood sugar is going to be north, and I don't care what you eat.
Yeah.
Even meat and vegetables, you can't tell me your blood sugar is not elevated in comparison to a true fasted state, so to speak. So
Yeah.
those are the main changes. Your gear we added in on Sunday of last week. And it's God, if I said what it was out loud, people would think I was full of shit. So I'm not even gonna say it. But
Right.
let's just say we're having cards up our sleeve for when USA's come around.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll be
So
just fine there.
yeah, agreed. And I think we've talked about that at multiple podcasts. Like if you come out the gate strong with everything guns blazing, you have nothing to do when you need to get an extreme look. So, that's one of the things that I'm great with is that I'm patient. And the thing that you're good at is remaining patient and knowing
Yeah.
like, hey, Crystal put shit in there when we need it, and I'm not going to rush it. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's also helped that we've went through so many preps together. I'm not going to make you go on stage natural, but at the same time, like we want to keep you running efficiently. And since your body was responding so well being on TRT, my thought process is like, let's just keep riding that damn wave until we need it.
Yeah.
And I think what it's going to do is going to bring you on stage with a really clean look. You're going to be full, you're going to be hard, and your body's going to be like, man, this feels good,
Yeah.
as opposed to feeling like death, using everything. So
Yeah.
just kind of my thought process. And I mean, the good news is you welcome all this. Like when I pull food and add cardio, like it fires you up.
Yeah. It gets me excited for sure.
As it should,
Yeah.
like fuck, remember what we're doing. Like
Yeah.
we want to look crazy, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. It's always been that game. It's like, well, it's always funny too, because you get like the different mindsets. You're like, oh shit, no one else has to do this. Like, why, woe is me. Or you get, no one else is doing this. Why don't, like, let's see them try to do it,
Yep, agreed.
you know? And like, I mean, you can argue that all day, but like there's people who come in shape and then there's people who are just freaks.
Yep.
And I've always wanted to be in the latter category. So, as I've said multiple times, if you want something, you got to do that. What's required of that category. If you want to be a bodybuilder, you got to do bodybuilder things. You want to be a freak, you got to do things that freaks do.
Yeah.
Like simple concepts.
Yep. Yep.
No one applies them.
You know what's really interesting too, right? Is I said this to you in your email. I was like, I need 3.5 weeks of hard. So you figure what
Yeah.
that 21, 24 days, 25 days. Like,
Yeah.
fuck, and like that's nothing. You'll blink and then it'll be gone. And I mean, with where your body fat composition is right now, I'm telling you, 3 weeks you'll be ready. And
Yeah.
I believe that in my heart. Like, if we manipulate things, and I know I will, unless something crazy happens, you'll be in shape in 3 weeks, like crazy shape. And then it's just a matter of managing that look, getting through show one, see how you look on stage with a tan on, with the lights on, and then we have plenty of time to make adjustments between that show day and USA. So
Yeah.
because then it's like just fucking smooth sailing to me. Like it's just business as usual. Like all the fat's off. Now it's just a matter of managing fullness and just what I like to think about is letting that condition marinate.
Yeah. That's what my body likes doing too, as we've seen with every post show rebound.
Because my guess is I'll be able to add some food back in,
Yeah.
reduce that cardio for a few weeks, and then give us a little bit of time to like fill out, and then we'll just suck you right back in. But
Yep.
the newer look, which will be fuller and more exploding, and then it'll be longer time on supplements. And we won't have to kill you with cardio or do double sessions if I had to guess, because it won't be.
Yeah.
Um, so then it's like, oh, now my legs are fuller. Awesome. Now I can load carbs on upper days, have hard leg training sessions. Guess what that does? Volumization, expand, explode.
Yeah.
So, again, it all comes down to managing things and having the long-term vision, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I could slaughter you into this show one and empty the gas tank, but then it's like, oh, now we got to go even longer between shows. Like, you have to be mindful of that when you're managing things. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to be in good shape. And I mean, I think as you said to me, like, we know where you can get.
Yeah.
So like I'm excited to watch this all play out. And as this challenging part of prep starts of show one, like, again, this is to me, I think I said it to you, like, this is where you feel alive, man. Like,
Oh yeah.
hungry, mind starts to play tricks on you, and you're like, ah, guess what? Same thing. Eat my meals, train hard, do my cardio, do PM
Yeah.
cardio, go to sleep, repeat. And I think, to some people, 21 days sounds like an eternity, but you and I both know it goes by so quick.
It does. Yeah, it goes by so quick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's basically a blink. Like hell, that's 3 leg days.
yes. Yeah. And people don't realize that, right? Like, oh God, that's nothing when you phrase it that way. Uh, but when you look at it intelligently, that's the way you have to look at it. And for me, that's always created a positive sense of urgency, like especially
Yeah.
for lagging or behind body parts. Like, oh man, like only have to train my back 3 more times or my arms 3 more times. Like, only have 12 more cardio sessions. Like, fuck, I gotta get on this. Like, there's no time like now. And I think the ones who almost dread it are like, oh God, I can't wait till this is over. Like, I think their physique reflects that thought process.
Yeah.
I don't have any signs
Well, then
for
they get done, they wonder, like, they're like, thank God this is over. And then they get pissed. They're like reminiscing on the shredded life. It's
yeah,
like that was your choice to forgo that with whatever you ate post show for a lot, like, binge eating for 2 weeks straight,
yep,
you know,
yeah,
like that's your body's just a reflection of what you do.
yeah, yeah,
It doesn't go back like it. You don't just. So many people harp on that. Like they're like, you can't be in shape year round. It's like, well, you're not going to be stage peaked year round,
right,
but like if you get to lean, getting out of being lean, if done correctly, you can stay pretty lean.
yeah, yeah,
But people need this. Like I don't know what it is these days. What they need, like crazy amounts of food post show. Like God damn, the amount of things will get eaten post show just blows my mind. Like, have a meal with your family, but like it's now like a binge fest of just like how much food can I eat? Let's do these 15,000, like 15K food challenges.
right.
And like, I get it, food's cool and all, but like making yourself miserable with food, like, no one ever wins with that.
No, no, not one bit. Like, I always think this too, right? If you came into town and didn't have like visible abs or veins in your arms or legs, I'd be like, what the fuck's going on with you?
Yeah,
And vice versa, you'd be like the same thing, like Chris, like, hey, you should back off those cheat meals, bro. Like,
yeah,
I feel like those are just almost like in my mind bodybuilding staples. If you're a dude, like you should have a semblance of abs and arms and leg veins all the time. And if you don't, like, it's time to start assessing what you're doing. And I know, like, maybe some people carry more fat in their lower body, so maybe that doesn't always apply to everyone. But for the most part, I don't feel like having veins to your calves is that hard to acquire if you're doing regular cardio and not eating garbage.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And that's the huge part too. I mean, like if your diet's so low and it's not sustainable because you have to have this crazy cheat meal on the weekends, just do the math on how many calories that crazy cheat meal is and add that to your fucking plan,
great. Yep.
right? And then maybe don't have a crazy ass cheat meal. Like if you go out, like eat something similar to what you eat on plan,
Yeah.
you don't have like that's like I think of that as not that big of a deal, but like let's say meal six is 700 calories in the off season,
Right.
right? If you had an off plan meal, like I would say 2 times that calorie amount, let's say 1,400, that's probably not going to murder you.
No, no, but
If it's just like regular ass, like you had a cookie, you had a burger and some fries.
yep.
That's not a huge jump.
Mm-mm. No,
It's where you had the burger and fries, you go home and you stuff cookies in your face, so you want to get, you know, until you legitimately can't eat anymore
Right.
because it's what people do,
No, yeah.
you know.
I'll tell you. So Angel and I took Daxon out to eat on Saturday night because he had a really great baseball game. So he played really well, and him and her wanted to go eat Mexican food. Well, in the grand scheme of life, like I don't know how you are. Like, Mexican food is just like 50-50 for me.
Uh-huh.
But this one that's like right down the street from our house, they do this bowl of like Spanish rice, steak, chicken, shrimp, and then like a fuckload of vegetables. Now they
Yeah,
and cheese sauce, but I always tell them not to. I don't want that.
yeah,
So I had that and probably I don't know 5 or 6 tortilla chips. Can't
yeah,
have another meal. Like no issue.
yeah.
It's like they were happy. They got whatever they wanted. I think he had like a cheese quesadilla and chicken fingers,
Hmm.
like enchiladas or whatever, and they both ate chips. Chips is not really my thing.
Yeah,
So there's no reason I can't go out with them and enjoy that meal in the off season. And then guess what? Like, just come and eat my next meal.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's all it is. Like and it gets so blown out of proportion. It's just a whole other rant we could go on, you
I
know.
mean, you figure like of that meal, like they probably cooked that meat in olive oil or some kind of oil, right?
Yeah,
So the fat there was probably higher than maybe I was used to. And then I don't know, the steak was probably skirt steak if I had to guess.
yeah,
So it's like outside of that, there was nothing in there that was, I mean, shrimp, steak, chicken, vegetables, rice, all my normal shit.
yeah, yeah.
So
Exactly. It's food is food, you
right.
know.
Yeah. And it was, seasoned really well and it tastes good and it's fresh. Like it's an enjoyable night. And then that way it's like, oh, I don't come home and feel like a fat piece of shit and, you know,
Yeah,
sit in the corner in the fetal position, farting my ass off.
yeah,
Right. And that way everyone's happy. And I think sometimes like that's where guys go wrong. It's like, oh my God, my coach always like treats me like I'm in prison. I can't ever have any like meals. I'm like, well, yeah, it's because you're eating, as you said, 15,000 calorie cheat meals. Like that meal I just labeled may have max been 800, maybe
oh
eight.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I probably honestly ate less meat than I normally would on the plan I would eat at home. And the rice
yeah,
was, I definitely ate more vegetables than I would normally have at that meal because like
yeah,
peppers, onions, zucchini, and like peas, and then the rice was probably like somewhere around the middle. So I don't know. I like you. It's just it blows my mind when people let their free meals get out of hand and they think like, oh God, like food's never going to be here again. Like it's not that big of a deal
yeah,
because listen, you and I both know when you have to wake up Sunday morning and do cardio and feel miserable and get meal one down. That's not an easy task if you blew out the night before. That whole next day or 2 days is hell. So,
yeah, yeah,
wow.
yeah. And you leave so much progress on the table
Oh, yeah.
when that next day comes and you skip meal one because you're not hungry,
Yep.
and then you eat meal two when your normal time is, but you have that you don't finish it or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that, now you're just like shooting yourself in the foot,
Yep. Yep.
And then what happens when you train that day? When you know, your body's still processing a whole bunch of garbage, and then
Yep.
you've had a half a meal,
Mhm.
you go train.
Yep. And I mean, I'm sure you've had guys that do this too. Like, oh, Chris, my first 3 meals were shakes. Cut it. I couldn't eat anything. Yeah, I wonder why your stomach still hurts.
Yeah, yeah,
Like in those situations, I almost would assumed like or would have preferred you go out, do a 60-minute walk, get moving, and then just try to get meal one down, and then go for a little
yeah,
bit of a walk, get meal two down, and then train. Okay, cool. You got to be hungry after that training meal. If not, like you really need to evaluate your bodybuilding because I don't know what you did the night before, but it's horrible.
yeah,
So it's the moral of that story is manage things properly and you'll be in a good spot.
yeah,
And food will always be here. I think we've said that more than anything, probably outside of Train Hard. Um, so
yeah,
anyway, I thought I'd give everyone a quick recap of where you were with your prep. As always, things are smooth. We have no injuries. Just ticking along, doing the right
yep,
shit on your updates. I think this week you had what 4 updates already.
yeah, yeah.
So if you work with me, you know I get crazy obsessive towards the end. So just want to make sure I am on top of everything. So
No,
that's where you are. I'll do a quick recap for me. Like my all season right now is in full gear, and this is easily the biggest I've ever been, the leanest I've ever been. So I was 256.2 the other day, fasted, and think by the end of the day, I'm like somewhere around 260-ish, 260,
Yeah,
261, depending upon where my food is that day. And I mean, outside of just a little bit of shoulder issue that I'm working around,
yeah,
the training is going so damn smooth. Like Danny was in town last week. We really opened up some like different ideas to how I'm going to train my back, which I'm pretty excited to get into. Like already, we trained back Wednesday, and then I trained it on Monday and did a lot of the techniques and things that we have been doing or we did last week. And I'm telling you, man, it's really have been an enlightening process for me because some of the things that I thought I was nailing, I hadn't even thought about doing some little like just little tweaks that she showed me, like on a straight arm
yeah,
pull down, on a pull down, like where to position, like because I was like, for it to give hard examples, like we filmed everything, so this will come out on YouTube. But like I was sitting towards the front side of my glutes in a lat pull down, and she's like, "Bro, you need to sit towards the back of your sit bones." And then like instead of being extremely north with my rib cage, like sink it down at the start of it to stretch my lat, and then as I drive down to my chest, then drive chest toward the bar. And it's like little things like that go a long ways. But
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, listen, it definitely fucks my back up. So that's exciting. And for some reason, my arms are growing like a weed. So I'm just gonna keep riding that wave. Um, and I'm thrilled about
yeah.
it.
Right. Yeah, keep doing that.
Yeah, right. I just had someone I had that video a long time ago that has a ton of views about why not to do push-pull legs if your arms suck.
Yeah,
Just got into it. The dude's like, man, your arms can grow on push-pull legs. I'm like, well, yours may, but mine sure as hell don't. Like, I need an arm day. And I think so many people fail to realize that because push-pull legs is trendy, right? And it's like, oh, well, if you do that 3-day rotation, you can technically train your body parts twice in a week. And like, oh, well, in 6 days, I can train everything twice. And that may have worked well for Ronnie Coleman, but the way you and I train, I don't see that as feasible.
yeah. Dude, most people who train hard, I don't believe can train more than 2 days in a row
Agreed.
accurately. Like maybe
Yeah,
push it to three every once in a while.
right.
Like
Yep.
in my reality, like 2 days on, 1 day off, and then the occasional 3 days on, 1 day off is like what your body wants.
And one of
At
those
least,
3 days has to be arms.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. It's not chest, back, and legs where your 3 days are on.
No,
Because,
hell no.
you know, everybody's recoverability skills, abilities are different, but like I've yet to find someone who can train their face off and legitimately recover for more than 2 days on in a row.
Agreed. Yeah. Oh yeah. And I mean, I just try to logistically think about this. Like, if I'm gonna do push pull and legs, like let's say you do push and it's like a press and a fly, a rear delt, a side delt, a cable push down, and some kind of extension or JM press, skull crusher dip, right? Something that's mass building for triceps, so to speak. Like, even at the end of that session,
Yeah,
how worthless is my like tricep extension is going to be, or dips,
yeah,
or jam press? Like after I've done all that other mess, or on a
yeah,
back day, how do you even begin to rationalize that? So let's say you do what, 3 rows, 1 pull down in a lower back, and then I got to go do, let's say, a hammer curl variation and a some kind of easy bar or dumbbell preacher curl. Like fuck, and then I got to do some abs in there.
yeah,
All
yeah,
right, cool. Like I got to train that again in 3 days, or I have to do legs after that. Like,
yeah.
come on.
Right. Like I could see some merit to having more training sessions, but not like you can't go foot to the floor like we do. Like if you come back for that other session, like it has to be like if I was to do it, like that other session is basically going to be like neat. I'm just fucking moving.
Yeah.
And that's where there's a huge confusion between training and doing things.
Oh, yeah.
Like I could go to the gym 7 days a week, but I
Yeah.
could just fuck around for 4 of them,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
and someone might really enjoy that if they train really hard for 3 or 4 days out of the week, and the other days they just work on other things.
Yep.
Like I've seen that work really well with people, but managing that, like me personally, if I go to the gym, I'm not going to half-ass shit. That's just how I work. I know what zero is, and I know really well what not zero is,
Yep.
but that gauge in between, I don't know where that is. Like that's why we don't do like deloads without me just taking the week fucking off, because ask Zach. He'll be like, if I normally do the 150s, he'll be like, well, 20% of less is, well, let's do the 120s. And then I'll just get like 25 reps with it and like four force reps. And I'm like, Zach's like, well, that's not a deload. I'm like, fuck it. We did less weight, you know?
listen, you and I both come from John Meadows programs, and inevitably he'll write pump workout on there. And I know you're the same way as me. Like
Yeah.
exercise one, you might be like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna get a pump. I'm just gonna get a pump. Then you get rolling, and it's like, well, let's just take this set to the end, or let's do a drop set, or let's just see what happens if I hit a little close to failure. And then the next thing you know, by the end of it, you're like, fuck, that was a training session. There was nothing
Zach
pump.
always Zach always laughs because we have that pump back day. And
Yep.
he's like, the only difference between our back day and the pump back day is we do more pull downs and one less row.
Right. Yeah. And I typically stay off your lower back.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not really geared
He's
towards
like he's like those pump days are harder than some people's training days. And I'm like, yeah.
especially not this current one, but the previous one where I had to do all those damn supersets where it's like cable into like a traditional hard exercise.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I did that one day and I was like, man, this is a good session.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's as much as I again love the idea of push pull legs, like I always go back to if you need arms, you have to have an arm day. And I know like so many people are like, Chris, I don't want to drive into the gym for an arm day, or like, or my calories too high on that day. And I'm like literally, why won't you just take it as a day to flush blood in the arms, not kill your central nervous system, and then get like a little bit of buildup in your glycogen stores? Like I've always
Yeah.
thought about that.
I've
So
I've always laughed a little bit too about like the calorie difference. Like the end of the week it really matters, but like in that singular day, like the difference between like a rest day and a training day on a lot. I point this out to people all the time when like I have clients, they'll be like, I took an extra rest day, but I had my training day meals prepped, so I ate those. And I
yes,
was like, all right, so you obviously didn't drink the intro workout because if you
right,
did, that was poor thought process in your head.
right,
But the difference in calories, we had okay, cool. We had 600 extra calories today.
yeah,
That's like a fucking one meal,
right,
you know? Or if you even look at it that way, that's like two donuts.
right.
People
Yeah,
would glance at that in all another day, like especially in the off season. Like that, yeah, that's a addition, but like really, that's not a huge. And then if you are training, like you're gonna burn like okay, it's an arm day. Let's say you burn 200 calories.
right. Yep.
You still burn calories after that recovering.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. Yeah.
So what's the difference there? An extra, that extra what is forcing growth?
Yep.
Like that's how you grow is those surplus of calories.
Or you get those guys who are like, I hate arm day. It's not hardcore enough. I'm like, you aren't training them right then.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, listen, you and I have had good arm days together. And yes, it's not like rowing 150s, but it hurts. Like it's a ton of pain and
Yeah.
pump. You should be leaning into that, especially if you want them to grow. Like I always ask
Yeah.
those guys, I'm like, have you ever been around a pro bodybuilder? Have you ever seen what their arms look like in real life? I bet you'll start training them hard after you see their arms.
Yeah.
Go look at Lee Priest's retired arms.
Yeah.
I always would laugh because, I would go visit John, even retired, and I'm like, God, his arms are still over 20 inches. Like, dear, and listen, as everyone knows, he didn't carry any fat on his arms. So it wasn't like it was a blubbery mess. It was like,
Yeah.
those are legit 20-inch arms, non-pumped. Like, man, I need to do arms. Yeah, you do. So if you're a bodybuilder, you got to train arms. I don't care what anybody says. All right, so let's transition into a topic you had that I thought was actually incredible, which was the people who are married to exercises that are actually degenerative to their physique, meaning they aren't progressing off of them, they aren't growing off of them, and it's actually hurting the way you look. So maybe I'll let you open up this and just kind of talk about your general thought process, and we'll see where this takes us.
Yeah. Well, I think I came to you with this one because we were kind of laughing about just different client thought processes. And it was like one of the ones where women are very easy to coach on this one. Like if I tell a girl never to flat bench press, it's just okay, cool. They never do it again. But sometimes you tell the guys to never flat bench, like with never quotation marks. We're just not doing it for chest,
Like,
right? And then we get why can't we do flat bench?
yep,
It's like, well, it's like one of those things. It's just like the observation skills, right? Because it comes with a lot of body weight. We see this with a lot of things, but we got people who bench press all the fucking time and they have elbow and shoulder pain and no chest.
correct. Yep.
right? You got some dudes who flat bench and they do have a chest, that's given, right? But then it comes to like, but it's like, okay, cool, that's not working. Let's change that to something what does. What maybe we can get something more. It's just like someone who's been straight bar push down and straight bar cruising and still has 14-inch arms, but they've been doing those exercises for 6 fucking years. It's like, okay, cool. Maybe we're not getting that right because you can't get in position correctly because of your structure. So
Agreed.
maybe straight bar curls aren't for you. And if they work for Jimmy, that's Jimmy's arms.
Yep.
You've been doing them how long? And you have like a correlation, right? And so it's like, okay, cool. Maybe you need dumbbell so you
Yeah.
can move your wrist.
Yep. Yeah.
Or go to cable and start over there.
Yeah.
You know,
To me, it always goes back to being tied to your ego, right? Because a lot of times those people are good at moving load. Now, notice I'm not saying training the muscle, they're good at moving from A to B. So on the bench press, like they may be able to press 3 plates, 4 plates for a bunch of reps. And it's like you said, it elicits nothing but shoulder and elbow pain. And if you look at their physique, it's like, huh, your front delts are really developed and your triceps are thick. Awesome. You aren't growing your chest with that exercise, clearly, even though you're technically good at it, right? Where let's say you make them go to an incline barbell and they have to pull a plate off, and suddenly it's like, ugh, that's not fun. Or you're like, hey, we're gonna go do dumbbells now. Or I'm gonna take that bench press that you're doing first and move it to last. And
yeah,
like, Chris, it takes all my strength away. Yep. What does your chest feel like though?
yeah,
Like, and listen, I was so guilty of this, but in a different way. Like I was married to squatting. I thought, man, the day I stopped squatting with a bar on my back is the day my legs disappear. And John was like, are you gonna not train leg press and hack squats hard? No, I still am. All right, awesome. Just see what happens. Guess what? My legs
yep,
got like, and I stopped having as much lower back pain. So that means, guess what? I'm not getting injured as much. So that means I can grow more,
yep.
right?
And then you can
So
train other things better.
correct. Yes. And I was married to it for so long because, for years everyone said, oh, you gotta squat to get big. And then it was almost like an ego thing, right? Of like, oh, you skip squats. Of course you do. Like it's almost viewed as weak in the bodybuilding that we grew up in. And it's like, oh, well, I'm not dodging that exercise. I'm actually good at it and I grow off of it, but it's fucking my back. Like
Yeah,
not in a good way. And like I was so hesitant. I'd go away from it for a bit and I get scared. I'm like, oh, let me just try to squat again. And then the next thing you know, I'm moving it up in rotation, and then I'm back to, trying to get 4 plates for 20. And the next thing I
yeah,
know, I call Angel like, hey, my back's out again. I'm headed to the chiropractor after work. It's
yeah,
not.
yeah,
So, like you said, women tend to be extremely easy to coach on that because they almost have no ego in terms of connecting to an exercise. They're just like, all right, how can I make this muscle better or my whole physique better? And you're like, do this. Like, all right, awesome. I'm going to do it. And they get excited for it.
yep,
As opposed to guys, like they're always like, oh, well, so and so said I need a straight bar curl. Or when I was coming up, I grew off of these exercises. Yeah, you used to grow off of those. Being the key word, how much progress have you made in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Little
hmm
to none. All right. You're going to keep banging your head against the wall, or you're going to open your mind a bit. Kind
yeah,
of my thought process.
super true. And then it's also like, it goes back. There's sometimes where people are like, well, hack squats hurt my knees. It's like, send me a training video.
Correct. Yep.
What's, you know what I mean? Like, instead of like, sometimes there is merit on actually learning more, like just what you talked about with your back,
Yep.
right? Like, you've been training 20 plus years. We still have little things we can change.
Yes. Yep.
That goes with every exercise. And it's always funny because like, there's the inverse and reverse of that situation, right? We got people who are like, I have to do my sideways chest press because all of the regular bench press hurts my wrists.
Yep.
It's like, all right, that you mean now we just walk backwards, whatever. It's like maybe let's figure out how positioning goes. Like if you're benching like this for whatever reason, maybe that's why it hurts your wrists. Let's see some footage. Let's see how your anatomy goes with that movement.
Yep. Yeah.
But instead of trying to make it easier, the
Yes.
goal of the workouts is to make them difficult.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
And it's one of those. that can be a difficult concept for some people.
Right.
Like the whole thing should just suck.
Yes. Yeah.
Like yeah. And then if it sucks in the intended muscle you're gonna use, like you're doing it correctly,
Right. Agreed.
you know. So
Yeah. I think I was guilty of that a lot in my training when I was young. Like, you remember watching those old videos of Dusty Hanshaw, like straight bar skull crusher, like two and a
yeah,
quarter, two plates and a 10.
yeah,
I got those videos like ingrained in my brain. So I thought, oh, well, I need my triceps to grow. So I actually got into a point where I could hit 185 for sets of like 10 to 15, depending on where they came in the tricep workout. And I'm like, this is doing nothing but wrecking my fucking elbows. And even though
yeah,
I'm good at it and can move weight, how much of that weight was being moved by my triceps? And the answer was little to none. And it was giving me insane elbow pain. So it's like, oh, well, I'm gonna put elbow sleeves on to do this, or oh, I'm gonna cover it in Tiger Balm. Man, that's a fucking band-aid, bro. Like, have you considered it? The straight work skull crusher just isn't for me. And
yeah,
it took me way too long to come to terms with it. Because then what happens? You have elbow pain, it starts affecting your back. When you row heavy, it starts affecting your pressing. Because it's like, oh, now I'm sitting back with what I thought was light 120-pound dumbbells on incline, and you're like getting shearing elbow pain, and you're like, fuck me.
yeah,
And listen, I'm sure you know this too. Like, when you're training through negative pain, it sucks. It's not fun.
mhm,
I know what it's like to feel healthy. So let's just see if we can feel healthy and just trash the muscle with exercises that don't destroy our joints. And
yeah,
yes, they may not be hardcore or, whatever, fill in the damn blank what you want to say with that is, it's not the staples that you may recommend to someone who are in their early 20s, but like I have to come to terms with the fact that I'm almost 40. And if I want to keep laying on the gas pedal, I have to just be more smart with exercise sequencing and selection. And
yeah,
the exercises that used to work and work well for me, or the exercise order that used to work well for me, that's not the right answer anymore. And
yeah,
I learned that through watching Dexter Jackson, right? Like, I feel like that dude always was evolving his training. And yes, he was working with trainers and that kind of thing. But, I think early in his career, he talked about he was the basics guy. And then as he started to age, he just like, hey, like I have to go more machine and cable shit. And at the end, it was like, oh, now I'm just going to pump the muscle full of blood. And that's the reason he was able to lift into his 50s. Now, that is probably one of the most genetically gifted men in our sport ever. So he may not be always the right person to look for knowledge, but to me, it's like he was always open-minded to the fact of not being married to a training program or
yeah,
exercise. So
yeah. I love pointing sometimes I'll talk to people like if they're just super married to an exercise thing, I'll ask them like what happens if you took your current training program and I put you in a gym that had none of the same equipment in it.
right, yeah,
Like, is your muscle gonna fall off and leave you just that? Are you still gonna be training?
but they just won't train that week.
You know what I mean? Like, your body isn't just it's not just an adaptation to those specific movements,
Right,
right? But it's an adaptation to the overall stress. So, like, even if like you never did that same tricep push down again,
right,
your tricep is still gonna have that from prior experience.
yes,
It that one is always comical to me because it's just like even if we transpose you to a gym like you've never used any of the equipment before, but you can still hit all the muscle groups or whatever.
yeah,
As long as you figured out a way to train hard, your muscle's not going to go away.
no, not one bit. And you might actually be more sore because it's newer exercise and new stimulus.
Yeah, yeah, you're definitely going to get a new stimulus for sure.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's also why you could drop us in any gym. And outside of just the weights being heavy enough or us fitting into the machines, we're going to get a good session in. It
Yeah,
may not be what we would ideally do at, say, your gym or my gym, but we can definitely have a good session. Like,
yeah,
and we're going to walk away from there saying, hey, man, we had a great pump. Muscle was trash. It was hammered. Now, if we go into a Planet Fitness and maybe the dumbbells go to 80s, we may have to get super creative. But I mean, you give us a Smith machine and some dumbbells and a handful of machines, and fuck, man, like, why couldn't we get something done?
yeah,
So yeah, I've always wondered, like, if you watch some guys squat and it's like totally hip hinged,
yeah,
like, I don't know why I'm not growing. I have a 600-pound squat for reps. I'm like, yeah, your quads do zero.
yeah.
Like maybe you shouldn't squat. And then it's like, why? I'm like, have you ever just tried take the next 12 weeks and just do leg press, hack squat, and say lunges or leg extensions and put the same effort you put in that 600-pound back squat for 12 reps and see what happens. And if you can remove your ego and try that, I'd be willing to bet you that their legs would grow. Now,
Yeah,
that's assuming they're not going to put their feet way up on the platform like an idiot.
yeah. Do the thing, make, like I said, make the exercise easier,
Yeah, right.
you know,
Yeah.
like, oh, cool. And this is how it's supposed to go. It's like, hey, we didn't take a step back and realize why we're here.
Yeah. Oh, agreed. Like, I'm sure your thought process is the same way of mine. Is like, if you have a body part that's say being stubborn or you're not growing, like one of the first things I'm going to start assessing is my form on those. And it's like,
Yeah,
wait, am I getting to a reasonable or full stretch? Am I getting to full contraction? Is it cramping at contraction? Is my tempo right? Am I rushing out of the hole? Like those are all things that I think about one. And then it's like two, it's like, okay, cool. Like now I'm gonna start looking at exercise order and how I'm doing it in sequence. Does it make sense logically? What can I do to, as you said, make everything harder or to make and me to get more out of a given exercise? So like, for example, I know I'm gonna love and feel dumbbell rows. All right, what if I do that after, say, a dumbbell pullover, my shoulders are wide open, I can get more range of motion on the contraction. It's like, huh. I've always started to look at a body part that way. You know, if I have someone who has horrible legs, why? Why are they bad? Okay, because I have knee pain, Chris. All right, cool. How are you structuring the order of your exercises? What does your form look like? Do you wear knee sleeves? Do you not wear knee sleeves? Where you put your feet? Like, do you just have shitty equipment? Because listen, we've all gotten on a hack squat that feels like death.
yeah,
You know, and you're just like, okay, for you, that's a poor exercise. Or for everyone, it's a poor exercise. Where
yeah,
if you may use the Cybex that's at your gym or the flex piece that's at my gym, you get on there like, man, this hack squat feels great. Yeah, because it's a good piece of equipment. You
well,
know,
if you get on the Cybex at my gym, you're going to be pissed off because you're going to have 3 plates on it. The if that thing's like that straight weight on that Cybex is hilarious because I we had 4 plate. Well, also we're doing it after
yeah,
3 things with pre-exhaust, right?
right.
But 4 plates on there. I've legitly done 8 plates on the Icarian one, and
Yeah,
I'd rather like it'd be easier to do the 8 plates on the Icarian one than it 4 plates on that Cybex.
yeah, oh, yeah.
Like it's comical because it's steep.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And it's not forgiving.
No,
Like you can cruise on that flex piece that I have at Elite
yeah,
because it's so damn smooth and
yeah,
it's a I wouldn't say it's like super far back, but it's definitely not as steep as that Cybex. It's somewhere kind of in the middle.
yeah,
Uh, and again, because it's so damn smooth, like you can load plate on it, like load weight
yeah,
on it. So yeah, I always wonder with those guys where it's like, hey, like, I need to make that muscle work. So how can we stress it with load? Or it's almost one of those things where it's like, okay, cool. I'm going to intentionally make you weak at an exercise. Like, let's say if you couldn't feel hack squats, I'm going to do a shitload of leg extensions, occluded probably, and then put you on it. And I
yeah,
guarantee your legs are screaming when you do that hack squat. Right,
yeah,
cool. Now, like, let's get you to a point where you don't have to compromise load. So let's say it pulls you back 2 plates. Let's get back to our normal load after that. And the next thing you know, then we may be able to reverse those orders again. So it's always an effort to make things work the muscle as hard as humanly possible. And if you think what I've always thought about or what I've seen, especially with people that come to town, it's like if we can remove your ego from something and just say, how can we make this horrible for your muscle? And the next thing you know, they're like, man, I've never felt a pump like that. Like, yeah. Like
yeah,
it's wild.
exactly.
I mean, it doesn't matter if you're brand new to lifting or have been in this game as long as we have, like there's always something to be said for looking at training from an outside perspective and like, okay, cool. Like you and I could move weight on that true squat, but we don't need as much if we put it last.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I don't think I'm getting any less work removing 1.25, 2 plates if I structure that at the end of the session versus if I put it first. Like, if anything, I'm saving my back a little tension and I'm saving my knees a little tension.
Yeah,
As long as we get on there and take it till we can't stand up, I'm still going to get growth.
yeah.
Where,
I mean, that's exactly why we don't squat first. That's why we usually we're going to start with a hamstring curl
yep,
for our knees and to start with hamstrings.
yep,
Probably do an adductor,
yep,
right? everything's warm, we're gonna spring out of that hole because our muscles are up,
Yes.
you know, versus going into a squat first and having to do 40 warm-up sets.
Right. Yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
And I mean, that's another aspect is how you structure your training. Like if you spend so much energy just doing warm-up sets, where you're now unable to get your body to where it's an actual set because you just ran out of gas,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like that's always a fun one to point out too, because like your body responds differently to fatigue versus like the actual stimulus of it being like, oh shit, that was hard.
Yeah.
Because there's two different realities there. Like your body will adapt.
Yeah.
Like you can do a lot of fucking things with bare minimum, like not high effort
Yes.
and be sore as shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But
Yep.
your body's chances of being like, yeah, we need to change of that, you know, like go do a wall sit for 30 minutes and tell me how your legs feel the next day.
Yep. Agreed.
You know, like the chances of you having developed quads from that are going to be pretty slim.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they are developed, they're going to be like this big around.
Yeah. You know, listen, we can make this whole thing about legs, if I'm being honest, because the amount of guys that have, when I give them the way I love to structure a lower body session, they have so
Yeah.
much resistance to it because they're like, oh, my quad movements are going to be down because you're exhausting me beforehand. And I'm like, maybe weeks 1 through 3, but by week 4, you'll be right up at your normal weight once you adapt.
Yeah.
And I don't know how closely you ever followed like Louis Simmons with Westside Barbell, but he used to like to have his guys do like backwards sled dragging before their lower body days. And he would
Yeah.
say that he had guys like complaining, like, oh, my squat sucks now because you're making me do this. And he's like, how about you just get fucking better?
Yeah.
Like, that's what I've always thought about. Like, well, of course, week 1 of you doing leg curls, adductor, leg press, and then you go squat. Of course, you're either your hack or your pendulum, true squat, barbell, yoke bar, whatever, is going to be down because you're not used to doing 4 things hard before it. But I guarantee, give it 2, 3, 4 weeks, and your squat numbers will be way up. You'll have less knee pain, and you'll actually have a bigger pump. And then, but the bad thing is, like 4 weeks for a lot of people is a lot of time. You know, like
Yeah.
I'd already believed in John's system before I ever bought his training program. So when he had me do that rotation, I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. And then he explained it thoroughly in there of why he thought about programming hamstrings first. And because hamstrings were a weak body part for me, I loved it like from day
Yeah.
one. Because I mean, I'm sure the first time you ever did that like drop set with partials, you're like, fuck me, like this is working.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
you get off that either lying or seated leg curl, and there's no doubt in your mind, like you just got better. Because I don't know about you, but I'd never felt my hamstrings like that. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like I'd done hard sets of hamstrings, but I'm like, I've never done 30 partials.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
like that to me, I got off like I don't give a fuck what my squat is. Like I'm fired up because I'm like, man, this is wild. Like this feels good.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever remember that very first leg session on 12 Weeks of Pain and Suffering. It goes leg curls, then it goes leg press to leg extension to Smith machine squats. So
Yeah.
that's where I stopped. And I remember like I read it over the first time and I'm like, man, squats at the end. This is gonna be interesting. This is gonna be fun. And then I thought, oh, is this gonna be enough? And then I did it and I'm like, oh, this is more than enough.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, like my mind on leg training is so overhauled, and this is just week 1. Like I remember I couldn't get to week 2 fast enough.
Yeah.
This is gonna be a fun ride. And then guess what happened? My legs grew.
Yeah.
But that's because I wasn't so egotistical to think, well, I've had success with leg training in the past. My legs are not my worst body part by any means. They're probably my best at that point. But if I'm going to get them to the next level, like let's open my mind. Like let's be receptive to new knowledge, and someone who's bigger and better than me and has gotten guys way better than me, bigger. Like let's go for this ride where I think some of you guys may sign up with us and they're like, oh, I want to be big like them, but I'm married to what I'm doing now. When, well,
Yeah.
if you had the answers, why are you calling us in? And why aren't you our size yet?
Yeah.
Those 2 simple questions. And it's like,
Yeah.
huh, never really thought about it that way. So,
Yeah. Well, it's always really pretty funny because I mean, like if you take what someone's already doing, right? And you don't really change it, they're gonna get to where they've already been.
Yes,
Like that's how they got in this situation.
right.
Like, so like there are some principles of training what aren't gonna change, but like being open to that change is where you see progress.
Agreed.
That instinctual be like, oh well, I've done it this way,
Yep.
isn't always gonna win.
No, no.
And if it doesn't, like what are you gonna do? Go back? You can always go back to the other way,
Yeah.
and you might take something, you might learn something out of it.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, I've always felt that like with any, even if you take a guy's current training for say lower body and you say, okay, cool, like I want you to have a triple drop with partials on the leg extension. I want you to start doing adductors second, and then all your quad movements, I want them no less than 12 reps. And they're like, what do you mean? And I was like, I want you to take your current setup and just do that. And they're like, but it's going to affect my weights. I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, it does. But what do your quads feel like? Like I have a really good guy who for years he banged his head. He's been with me. We've done 2 off seasons and now 2 prep. This is his second prep with me. And this past off season, I told him, I was like, he came in town, we trained, and he was like, Chris, like my legs, I'm just frustrated with their growth. I'm always getting knee pain. And I asked him, I was like, what have you been doing? Have you been following the program? And he's like, well, yeah, no. Like they train in a pretty big popular like gym. And
Mhm.
he always he's mid 40s and he always wants to like keep up with the 20-year-old guys squatting and things, but has terrible knee pain when he does it. And I was like,
Yeah,
I got him to do exactly what I just laid out for you. I was like, I want no set of quads less than 12, and ideally in the 15 to 20.
yeah,
Super resistant. Well, that's gonna take a bunch of weight off. Yeah, but what are your knees gonna feel like? What do your quads feel like? We've seen more quad growth this prep, just simply changing that. Like
hmm
just simply taking his north reps on legs, and then I make him send me his work sets every other week. So guess what that does?
yeah,
Creates a sense of accountability. Because like,
yeah,
oh, he's going to be watching this. And I don't care what anybody says. If you're on film and you know you have to send it to someone you respect, that changes the intensity.
yeah,
If you aren't someone who can get there instinctually or has a
yeah,
reason to be. You put
yeah,
you and I don't need that camera to get there. But I feel like sometimes others need that. They need that external driving force to be like, man, I don't want to leave reps in the tank because if I do, he's going to call my ass out on it.
yeah.
So, it's
Well, it's just like as if you were standing there when I'm training. Like
yep,
if you act like honestly, God, if you go to your training session and you just imagine what your coach is looking over your shoulder
yep,
and or just fucking spotting you,
right,
and then you can feel good about your workout, like you probably did a good job.
right, yep,
But all those ones where you look around and you rack you, like that was good enough.
yeah,
There's no return on good enough. This isn't like a college class, but if you get, your 70%, it's a pass.
yep,
There's you either did it or you did not do it in bodybuilding.
yep,
There's no like all those people who are going to say reps in reserve. Like I'm going to call you out right now and say that's you're not going to find it because your brain's going to play tricks on you.
yes,
You can probably do reps in reserve if you've been training for 15 years.
right,
You have no idea where that reserve is if you just started training. But if you give 80% in bodybuilding, you're getting maybe 10% out of it.
yep, agreed.
And that return is horrendous.
Yes. I,
You will look the same, you won't change, your body fat won't go down, and you can cut calories and lose muscle. You can definitely do that. But if you want to actually change that effort needs to be well into the at least the high 90s. At the point of like I gave everything I had towards that, and now we'll see where the cards fall. And that's the only return you get out of this sport. There's no, oh, I showed up today and I didn't like doing that's fantastic for whatever reason, right? But actually changing, it doesn't work that way.
agreed. Yeah, that is a very tough dilemma, I think, for a lot of people to see because they see their favorite Instagram people like smiling and talking to the camera after a set or like kissing their wife or girlfriend or just dicking off. And I think they believe they can do that, or they don't realize that person they're following and they love their physique already has all the muscle they care to have.
Yeah.
They aren't you who is at home needing 80 pounds of tissue to get where that person is.
Yep.
They already have all the muscle. They're just filming content to make money. They don't understand like what you and I do is that it's not pretty when you do a set right.
Yeah.
We aren't cracking jokes after a set's done. Like
Yeah.
my brother's not even talking to me after we film. Like he might say, "What's next?" And that's after I regain my breathing.
Yeah.
I may grunt some numbers at you or scream some cuss words, like, but that's about it. Like, I'm not formulating sentences. There's a reason I don't do the voiceovers to the end of the session.
Yeah. It would just be heavy breathing.
Right. He'd like, Chris, we can't use this audio. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And oh, by the way, my thoughts would not be composed whatsoever. Because
No.
if I'm in the right headspace and we finish, say, a back off set of hack squat, I'm already thinking about that. Okay, I need to get this pounds for a field set of lunges, and then I'm going to do this for my work. And it's like my brain is already unrack this weight, and then I need to dump it for lunges or RDL or glute bridge, whatever's the next movement. I'm not thinking about teaching while I'm in the session.
Yeah.
A lot of times, and I know people don't know this, like I'll take a 5-10 minute break, I'll wash my hands, I'll take a piss. Like it's a decent, I'm trying to get it to the point where I'm not profusely sweating and I can actually get a heart rate below 80.
Yeah.
And then we get the mic and he's like, "Are you ready?" "Yeah, I'm good now." "Okay, cool. Let's
Yeah.
get in the back room and get in front of the flag and do a voiceover." Awesome. So I think so many like they just get scared of, they're like, "Oh, well, you'll even hear like these really famous guys like, oh, it's like a switch, you can flip it on and off and you can play between sets." And man, as most can't do that.
Yeah.
Not and build slabs of muscle tissue that will make people look twice at you walking down the street. And
Yeah.
you know, I always think about like how long you and I have had to train and do everything we just described in order to get that. Like, hasn't been fast. It hasn't been astronomical jumps. It's just been slow and steady. Like, and that's because you do the right things week after week, month after month, year after year, and you have a reason to show up and work hard because you love it. Remove cameras, remove Instagram, take away everyone in the gym, put us in a fucking black hole somewhere with dumbbells, and we'll go have fun. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
none of that shit matters. Like, we're still going to go have fun and train because that's what we do. Like, it's
Yeah.
part of our life. It's like brushing our teeth. Like, it's fun. We look forward to it. Cannot wait for that singular moment. That's not the only thing we do in life, but it's one of the things we do and we enjoy because neither you or I get paid to compete yet.
No.
And the amount of people who get to do that is like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
So we get paid off of bodybuilding, but that's very different than being a paid competitor, right? Like,
Yeah.
we aren't walking away with an Arnold check of 500 G's or whatever the hell it's going to be at, right? Like
Yeah.
a million or whatever he's chumped it to. So like we have to really think logically. It's like, oh, well, would anyone want to sign up for this much torture if they didn't love it? And to me, no.
Yeah. Yeah. They definitely wouldn't.
I wouldn't. I would have quit this a long time ago. Like,
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
and I think you posted about this today, right? It's like, or maybe it was yesterday.
Yeah. Yesterday.
We do this for no idea if rewards coming.
Yeah.
This past arm day may have grown an eighth of an inch, or may have stayed the exact same. We don't know. We don't have the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no way to measure. There's no metric of measuring it though.
Right.
There's only doing what you can do to what you do. Like you have your meals, you have your cardio, you have your training sessions, and you have all the little things that come with that. But there's no direct return. There's not like, oh, cool. We put your money in the bank. We got your 4% interest rate. This is how it's going to grow if this happens. And then if you keep adding money to this, it's going to be this in 20 years.
Right.
You have that same fucking bank account with bodybuilding, but it's just a huge question mark.
Yes.
It's like you could do all these things perfectly and not get to where you want to go.
Yep.
But the entire fun part is your ability to do those things, right? And learn your own limitations and get past them.
Yes. Yep.
I think about this all the time when I'm dumbbell pressing. I'll be warming up and I'll be like, I'll grab I'll start with like the 80s to warm up with. And I was like, I remember when this was a top set,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know, or, and then go from there. And it's just like, that was cool. It's just like little things like that, and then like learning how painful you can make something and then coming back and making it worse,
Yes.
and that's the progression of that, how many meals I've had in a row that were perfect. Okay, let's get that. Oh, I fucked up. Okay, cool. Let's restart that number and go from there, you know, and just keep living that way. And all the like that's where the fun part of bodybuilding is it's you versus yourself.
Yep.
Like we live in a world like food's not hard to come by. Like if you're suffering for a contest prep and someone, you're like, oh man, this is so hard. It's like, well, you really can just fucking stop. Like I laugh about this all the time because like Costco muffins are always on sale. It's like $6 for a 12 pack, 2 6 packs of whatever delicious flavor they are. Like you can have that right now. Like you don't have to diet. You don't have to eat, fish and air.
Right.
You choose to do that.
Yeah. I always think about this too, right? It's like it's what we do is very similar to religion to me. It's like it's blind
Yep.
faith. You have to have blind faith.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I know in my heart I will always bet on my hard work. Always.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
never failed me in life.
Yeah.
It may not be I think I've said this before, like it may not be as quick as I would have liked it, but I know if every day I show up and I do the right thing and I put all my 6 meals in my mouth and I get to bed at a decent time and I sleep for 6 to 8 hours and get a nap, I've always grown.
Yeah.
Right. The moment I start slipping away from that, or my stress starts going north, or anything that could potentially deter the progress, I might start seeing diminished results. But as long as I do the things I have to do, and all the things we talked about early in this is about trying to make things harder and keeping an open mind and always being analytical with things, but not to the point where it paralyzes me, good things happen.
Mhm.
And I had a conversation with one of my clients this morning. He was frustrated because he's like, man, like all my buddies are growing at a faster rate than me. I was listen, I've been there. I've watched it.
Dude, I put on 30 pounds to be 30 pounds the same weight as everybody starting in the gym.
Right.
Like, yeah, to come and tell me. Like,
It, and I try to explain to him, like, listen, you just have to know that that fast progress for them will have taught them zero. They taught it was easy. I was like, you where you're digging through the damn weeds in the mud for every little quarter inch of growth. I was like, man, you have to just know that it's going to pay off. I surpassed all the dudes I used to train with and around in gyms in this area when I was in my mid 20s. I see them
yeah.
today, they're like, they haven't grown up hardly at all. And they're like, what the fuck happened to you? Where you stopped, I didn't.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
that.
it's like
Go ahead.
it's
Yeah.
one of those things. It's like if like any of the desirable traits in life, right? Like if you want to learn how to be patient, you're not going to learn that by doing things that are easy.
Yes. Yeah.
You're not gonna have those things without the very much opposite of that having to go through you.
Right.
And that's where those skills get developed is through the trials.
Mhm.
You
Yep.
know, like if like growing's never that's always been difficult, but now we make it easy because I know what happens needs to happen,
Yes. Yep.
right? It's just a matter of fact. Like it's cool. I'm nailing all the variables I can, and the cards label are going to fall where they fall. But I'm going to build the best goddamn hand I can get.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. I always tell people this. John didn't hire me because I was the smartest or the biggest guy, right? But for the first session we ever trained together, he saw in me that I refused to quit.
Yeah.
And I believe in my heart, like it was solely based on work ethic and integrity. Those
Yeah.
two things. The only reason I succeeded with him is working under him, or eventually being able to work under him. And like those things cannot be faked, right? Like those are deep embedded in our soul. And I always think back to that moment at 23 being in that gym. Like it was, in hindsight, it was probably way over my head, but I was too dumb
Yes.
to realize it. I, I had no clue. I was a young kid with a desire to get better. And I knew that dear God, I don't give a fuck what's going to happen in this next hour or two or three or however long it's going to take. I can promise you one thing. He's not going to walk away from this session saying that kid didn't give me everything. And it's as simple as that, right? Like I definitely wasn't as strong as him and Dave were that day, but I didn't leave any rep on the table. There was not once in that session I look back and like, man, I could have got a couple more there. And
Yeah,
both shook my hand at the end and said, "You're welcome back here anytime." Like,
yeah,
there's a reason I invited you back after you came the first time.
yeah,
Exact same thing. Like, and so many I think are scared to embrace that, or I don't know if they're scared to embrace. Maybe they just don't understand that yet. Like, progress will happen in spite of a lot of things, but work ethic and consistency always are the answer. You know,
yeah,
you can do a
yeah,
lot of dumb shit and progress. We've
yeah,
all seen people do it, but eventually they have to pay that piper, whether it be they're using
yeah,
too much drugs, they're lazy with their meals, like their training is just dog shit. Like eventually it comes to a point where they reach people of their same genetic level, and it's like, oh, now you have to double down. Where you and I learned this lesson way back here. Like,
yeah,
we're not hyper responders.
yeah,
We have to
yeah,
do crazy shit. And then right here, crazy is now normal. And then now we're trying to find ways to get psychotic, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's
what
one of
most,
those concepts. It's you either have to pay now or you pay later.
yeah.
There's no skirt in that work. Like it's funny to me, like so many people will laugh and be like, wow, you have such a good metabolism. Your preps are so easy. But they don't see how many times I said no to shit in the off season.
Yeah.
How many times did I skip cardio in the off season? And it's like, okay, cool. Like that's probably why, because I already paid my fucking deposit.
Yep.
You know, like your prep is miserable because you haven't put any of money down yet.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Like it's just that concept, and like those little pennies you add to each day, even though they don't seem like they're doing much, they slowly, surely add up,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
and that's where you really see the difference in between like a contest prep to an off season to a full off season to a contest prep. That whole thing is all the little things where you stayed in line with what you said you were going to do versus getting off track because of things you wanted to do.
You know, I think this too, right along all these same lines of all those people who weren't getting the progress they desired and they quit and they walk away. My thought process has always been like, what if I just held out for one more day or one more week or one more month? Or what if I just give it my all one more year? Like, what would happen? And I always have thought about anyone who's quit at any endeavor, whether it be their marriage or business or, bodybuilding training. Like, how do you know tomorrow isn't that day that just everything lines up and you start growing like a weed, right?
Yeah,
You don't know.
yeah,
And man, I would hate to be laying on my deathbed and look at Angela and be like, man, I wish I'd have given that bodybuilding just a one more hard year. Like that you talk about hurting your soul, right? Like when I walk away from this, I'm like, man, I have left everything in that gym I could ever dream of. And now
yeah,
it's fun. Now I'm just having fun. Now I'm just gonna walk away and like know in my heart, like it was emptied. And
yeah,
this was my path and I was supposed to walk it, as opposed to giving up in frustration because you're like, oh, everyone else has it easier than me. I have to eat more meals, or why does everyone else get to eat 400 grams of carbs on a prep and I'm at 60? Like, okay, that's you right now. You
yeah,
right now. Take a deep breath and let's just keep rolling, bro. Like, uh, maybe that's me talking out loud, but that's always been my thought process. Like,
yeah, yeah.
I
It's
always,
well, yeah. If you do that prep where carbs are at 60, I've been there.
yeah,
I've done the prep where my carbs are at 60 on a training day.
yep,
You know, that prep ends.
yes,
You continue bodybuilding. You don't fuck around. You build up through your off season, and guess what? The next time you prep, maybe carbs go down to 70 instead of 60.
right, yeah,
You
yep,
know
yeah,
but you're in a slight better position than you were last time.
Right.
And that's where it comes down to. It's just, oh, cool, we done something changed, add a little bit more muscle, we burn a little bit more calories now.
Yep. And maybe, you only jump 15, 20 carbs, 10 carbs, but maybe you're doing 30 less minutes of cardio. That
Yeah,
makes a world difference. Like,
yeah,
let's say you don't have to do any second session of cardio. Like, what a win. Like, that's you be able to chill and rest, prop your feet up, maybe get an extra massage, or maybe work on your posing, or maybe doing some extra vacuum work, or just spending some quality time with your wife, girlfriend, family, whatever. That just made life a fuckload easier.
yeah,
Now you can maybe do an ice bath or an Epsom salt bath, or just take a nap. Like, things will inevitably get easier if you give it time.
yeah,
You'll grow. Not everyone grows at the same rate. I think everyone may even if you take someone as genetically gifted as, say, Nick Walker, look at the beginning of his bodybuilding career. No one would have ever guessed he'd be third in the world, winning the Arnold and all that crazy shit after this first couple of shows. That dude said, nope, I believe in myself. I know if I do this and do it right, good things will happen. And it did.
yeah,
He just turned out to be a
yeah,
genetic freak that took some time to unlock.
yeah.
And you
Well,
never
take a
know.
gander at fucking Ronnie Coleman.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
You know how many? He took dead last at his first Olympia. He didn't even get a pose. They didn't even let him pose it that year,
Right.
right? How many people would have just been like, "Well, that I'm done."
Right. Yeah.
We would have never known.
Nope. No. I mean, it'd probably been so easy for him to say, I'm done with this. This is stupid. Like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna go be a cop and just enjoy life and
yeah,
raise all my kids. Or he became the greatest bodybuilder to ever walk the planet.
yeah,
And I think it's so easy for people to look at the end result and they don't know or think about all the struggle beforehand that preceded where most people, I think, they start picking up someone's journey, so to speak, where the success begins to steamroll, right?
yeah,
Like, no one knew Chris Bumstead was going to be bodybuilding.
yeah,
He was an actual bodybuilder, just another dude, right? Another dude that
yeah,
needed to gain muscle. And the next thing you know, he's the best classic physique guy in the world. And the next thing you know, he's the face of our sport, or one of the faces of the
yeah,
sport. Like,
yeah. Exactly. Taking in money, owning a supplement company, just raking in money. He probably did not think of that when he started training. That wasn't why he started training.
right. Something that always gets under my skin with him is like all the, and I say young kids because Ty, our older son, like him and all his buddies, like idolize him, right? And they all want, they all have his haircut and dress like him and have his shirts and shit. Like, he asked for one of his flags to go up in his dorm room, right? And I'm like, man, all you motherfuckers want to be like him, but no one wants to put 7 plates in their back and squat.
Yeah,
Like, I need you guys to like not look at the end result, and I need you to watch his training videos. Like, the dude goes in. Like,
yeah,
that's why he is who he is. It's not because marketing or some cool hairstyle or clothing brand or him leaning into his lisp or what, fill in the blank. Like, the dude had to put the work in, like, to get to where he was, like,
yeah,
and you have to respect that. So
yeah.
it's
Well,
really
I think it's also funny too. I don't think this is a side tangent, but so I feel like we get so many like weird fake people on the like Chris Bumstead didn't become famous because he made those things up.
no,
Dude is Canadian. The dude has a lisp. The dude had that haircut. He had the fucking mustache. He has the physique.
right,
He was all of those things. He didn't just he didn't look over and be like, you know what? I'm gonna be like that guy. He's like, I'm gonna be Chris Bumstead.
right, yeah,
That's why he's famous.
right,
Is he wasn't trying to be like 1,000 other different people. He woke up and he's like, I'm gonna do my thing and I'm gonna get good at it.
right, yes, yeah. I mean, and I think that's what kills me, right? Is like everyone has those like glasses and the mustache now that he has,
Yeah.
and I'm like, have you thought about acquiring that physique first, or something similar to it? Like,
Well, you can buy the glasses and you can grow a mustache. If you can't grow a mustache, like shit, get some what is that hair growth formula?
oh my.
Rogaine, put it on your upper lip.
Right. Or just my option would be to smash a bunch of growth hormone and pray that it happens. I'm gonna do direct GH sub Q into my lip. What's your hair growth protocol? I just gave it to you guys. You're welcome. Yeah, that's it's really telling, right? I think of where our current society is, where it's like it goes back to this whole like ties it together, in my opinion. It's like instant gratification. If I don't get instant results now, it's on to the next thing. Like,
Hmm.
and it kills me when I get competitors like that where they aren't instantly successful and they're like, oh God, I'm not a pro and it's 2 years. Are you serious? Have you even been to a
Yeah.
national level show to see what that talent looks like? Like, I
Yeah.
know they joke and say, oh, well, anybody can get a pro card these days. And it's definitely easier than it was when you and I started out, but you still have to have a physique. You,
Yeah.
you aren't giving away pro cards at nationals for open bodybuilding. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There's two,
Yeah.
but those top two dudes are nuts. And the guy who wins the overall, good luck standing beside that. That's going to take a
Yeah.
greater more work for most guys to even sniff looking like. So always laugh at that. Like, yes, it may be easier, but to acquire a pro level physique for most people will take a decade plus.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
fast. 99% of you people out there will have quit 5 years into it or sooner. Welcome to the reality. Like,
Yeah.
nothing kills me more than I get a young guy who's like, all right, Chris, I finished second in my regional show. I'm going to do nationals. You want to waste 5 Gs? All right, go for it. But I'm telling you, you're not ready.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I got second. Yeah, you couldn't win your weight class, bro. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, especially with classic, right? Because there's going to be 50 to 60 dudes in your weight class or height class, however you want to look at that.
Yeah.
You need to be complete anymore. Like, even same thing with like men's physique or bikini, fill in the blank. Everyone's doing wellness now, right? Like, there are easier classes, so to speak. Like, if you look like women's bodybuilding, but even then, like, you have to have a good physique. The last two girls I've turned pro in women's bodybuilding, they were their physiques were pro ready,
Yeah.
so they can
Yeah.
go.
No. It's hilarious to me. People will laugh at like they're like bikini's easy to do, and it's like you're an idiot. You like go take a gander at the nationally qualified bikini girls. They're all freaks.
Yes, agreed.
They're all 130 pounds of just muscle and shoulders.
Yes, an ass.
Yeah, glutes and shoulders,
Right.
and you know what I mean. And then the conditioning they bring to those levels, it's like most women never even sniff that.
No.
And it's like, and now you're saying this is easy. Like that's easily got to be a point. That's a decimal point percentage of a population. You know.
Imagine walking out there and you're one of 53 girls in class C and
Mhm.
everyone's in relatively good shape. How in the world are you going to stand out with two poses? You know,
Yeah.
at least with us, we get 4 quarter turns and 8 mandatories. Like, good luck. You better be beautiful. You better have good hair, a good suit, and a good tan, or you're not. It don't even matter what you look like, like
Yeah.
physically below the neck, like. And then you're like, oh, cool. Now you got to be able to walk in those heels. The delineation between first and 20th is probably not that much. Where in a bodybuilding show, so to speak, like if you just take North Americans as you did, Ken was here, and then it was everyone. Like we all know
Yeah.
the when he came out. Like,
Yeah.
all right, cool. In bikini, it's not that easy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like it's it's just one of those things. Like you go to a bodybuilding show, like, oh, cool, Phil, he's here. Awesome. All right, that's the winner.
Yeah.
Go to the Arnold and watch the bikini pros, and it's like 40 girls in incredible physique. All of them look great. How in the world are you gonna pick that top 10 apart? Like
Hmm.
your shit just starts blending together, and you're like, that one. 46.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know. It's interesting to me, like the state of where we're at. Like, I always just want everyone just like, hey, take a deep breath, like ride this out. Like, let's enjoy this. Get back to loving training and bodybuilding and eating your meals, and then we do that long enough, good things happen. And if a pro
Yeah.
card's in the books, it's eventually going to happen. And if it's not, like I've always felt like this, I'm still have learned so many lessons that are transferable in life. I think all
Yeah.
these things that I've acquired, mental toughness, doing without, saying no, thank you, choosing myself first when I need to, like doing something now for a later payoff, all of that will transfer in all of my life until I die.
Hmm.
So my marriage and raising two boys, like all of that will have taught me so many valuable skills. And I think that people are so quick to for a pro card or notoriety or 100,000 Instagram followers or sponsorships that they can't see any of that. And it's sad because
Yeah.
it used to be you just started training because it was fun and you loved it. And it was
Yeah.
something to do like maybe after your sports were over, or because you were bullied, or maybe because you hated the way you looked in the mirror. But now it's like people are getting into this because they're like, oh, fame, fortune, attention, like Olympia. Like, I, I think I've told you this. Like, when I started training for bodybuilding, I never really dreamed of putting posing trunks on. I didn't even care about it. Like,
No.
all these dudes are big as hell and lean. I want to look like them. Awesome. I'm going to start doing that. All right.
Yeah.
How can I learn everything about this with training and nutrition and supplements? Okay, cool. Now let's start applying it. And that's where my thought process was. I did no clue I would ever step on a bodybuilding stage or even coach people or like any of that mess. Now it's like people are starting there day one, never even done a bench press. Like,
Yeah.
good luck. You're going to need it.
Yeah.
Because as what you're getting ready to go through and experience, again, you have to call on that love when things get hard and challenging,
Hmm.
hungry, and
Yeah.
tired. Like, I'll always wonder that, like, where I think you and I smile at that shit, and it's like, we're back.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call that, the devil's breath, like feeling it, like, oh, we know something's fun on the other side of this if I can endure it. But those
Hmm.
people always wonder, like, is that why they go eat Chipotle on the way home and call it diet food? Because they don't know what this feeling is. And they're
Yeah.
scared of it because they don't truly love it and they don't want to see their body get so lean that it scares others around them. Like, I don't know, something that's another topic for another day, probably. But
Yeah.
anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Until next time, Chris, Little Dave, we are done.